What should I do? If I pick that option, what will they think of me? But if I pick that option, maybe I won't be happy, but that doesn't really matter. Will those people be happy or will they be disappointed? What if I make the wrong choice? What if people don't like the choice I made? What if I get criticized? What if they get mad at me? So, if you're a people pleaser, you were trained very early to pay more attention to what other people want, need, value, to other people's opinions, to what other people believe. You learned pretty young not to take into consideration your own needs, wants, beliefs. You learned to prioritize making other people happy over yourself, and you might also have learned that it's super important for people to like you. So, all of that comes together into having a really hard time making decisions. So, I'm going to talk you through the 5 reasons that being a people pleaser can make you very indecisive. And I think it's really important to know why this happens because once you identify why, then you have more of an ability to change it. So let's start with the focus on making others happy. This impacts our decision making in a couple of different ways. Mainly, what I want to say is that it is impossible to make other people happy. Now, we certainly have influence on people. And certainly, sometimes people will let us know in a very strong way what decision would make them happy. But honestly, it may or may not make them happy. Their happiness is their responsibility. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be nice to people. I'm not saying we shouldn't take others into account, of course. But if we truly think that our decisions are going to determine whether somebody is happy or not, we are focusing on something we are powerless over. I have a webinar called Rewire Your Brain, and in it, I talk about how people pleasing is a Sisyphean task, right? And we might get reinforcement. We might think that we do it once in a while, and oh, yeah, I can make that person happy. Well, does it last, or does the boulder roll back down the hill? So, trying to control the uncontrollable is at the core of anxiety. Most of the things we get anxious about are the things we have no control over. And we have no control over other people's emotions and how they handle their emotions. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is a misguided view of selfishness. So, most people pleasers that I have known, and when I have been in a people pleasing mode, I know this is true, most will have a very misguided concept of what selfishness means. And in my work as a psychotherapist for 20 years, working with people who tended towards people pleasing, they would always be worried. Well, if I do that, is it selfish? I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to make a choice that's selfish. Well, what does selfish mean? Most of us are taught about what selfishness is in the same households that we grew up in, where we learn to put other people's opinions, beliefs, needs, wants ahead of ours, right? So, one of the best definitions of selfish that I've ever heard is that you are selfish when you aren't doing what the other person wants. So, unfortunately, in certain families and certain family systems, children can be taught that it's selfish if they're not doing what the caregiver wants. Now, I'm not saying that children don't have to do sometimes what the caregiver wants, right? So, adults, hopefully, particularly if they're basically a good parent, need to provide guidance and structure and all sorts of things, right? But to attribute a child's resistance to those things to selfishness is very different than attributing it to the fact that children don't think as far forward as a parent does. Children don't assess consequences the same, right? That's why they need a good parent to guide them. So sometimes what I say gets really misinterpreted, and I'm definitely not saying that parents don't need to provide guidance and help kids not steal something from somebody else, not grab a toy out of another kid, not hit a kid over the head because they want that toy, right? But using the term selfishness ignores the fact that children have limited impulse control and that as a parent, it's part of your job to help them learn and develop impulse control, right? But at some point in certain families, we're taught that selfishness is really any time we are doing something that disagrees with the main caregiver. And if this stays with you till you're an adult, it can really impede your life decisions. It can impede your ability to make decisions. And then, if you're making a decision prioritizing what the other people want, you end up not happy. The third thing that impacts people pleasers with regard to making decisions is wanting everyone to like you. Now, this is very similar to wanting others to be happy because it is impossible. Not everybody's going to like us. And often, whether they like us or not, often it has nothing to do with us. Like, people have all sorts of preconceived notions, prejudgments. They may not like themselves. They may not like a quality in themselves that they think they see in you, or they think you don't have it, therefore they don't like you. Like, people like us or don't like us for all sorts of reasons. And again, if we're focused on what's going to make somebody like us, well, who knows, right? So that is really going to impede your decision making. It's normal to want to be liked. We all want to be liked. But people pleasers tend to prioritize that over anything else. They prioritize it over their own needs, even their own values. They might do things that reflect a value they don't like or they don't believe in just to make the other people happy and like them. So I do talk about this a lot more in my other videos on people pleasing, but that can certainly impact your decision making. Okay, so number 4 and 5 kind of get to the core here because number 4 is that people pleasers often have lost touch or maybe never really had touch with what they truly want, need, value, and feel, right? If since the time you can remember, you were focused on what other people were feeling, you lose touch with or you don't develop your own ability to know what you feel. If you don't know what you feel, how do you know what you want, right? If you don't know how you feel, how do you know what you value? If you're confused around the selfishness question, you can't really differentiate between your actual need and your wants. And then you're often sacrificing your wants for what somebody else says is a need, but it probably is their want, right? Other people might be very happy to tell us that they have a need we need to satisfy when it's actually a want, and therefore our want versus their want is kind of like here, right? Like, I do think needs are really important, and needs can have different levels from survival based needs to eat, sleep, rest, have shelter, right? To higher level needs of self actualization, of living in alignment with your values. That is a need for a happy life. And you're the only one who can do that for yourself. And other people are the only ones who can do it for themselves. But that confusion takes you out of touch with yourself. So if you don't really know what your feelings are, or what you need, or want, or desire, or value, how can you make decisions? And then number 5, which is related, because if you don't know that stuff about yourself, you're not in touch with it, so you don't really know how you weigh values, you also probably don't know what your real goals are. What are your goals? What does self actualization mean for you? Now, I'm going to summarize how all of these things interweave with the 2 main reasons we have problems making decisions, whether you're a people pleaser or not. But before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit more about that webinar and then a program I have. Because the webinar, Rewire Your Brain for Joy and Confidence, talks about why our brains get wired the way that they do, which is partially about some innate human wiring that we have to avoid risk, to have a negativity bias. But it's also about how we were trained when we were young, what negative core beliefs we developed, what beliefs we have about the world in terms of our role and our responsibility. And I think if you're listening to this, that webinar will be super helpful for you. And then I do have a related program, Roadmap to Joy and Authentic Confidence. I'll show the link here. Both of these things are linked in the description below as well. And the program really helps you walk through what are your true values? How do you make choices about what's truly important to you? And then it also goes into healing the negative core beliefs, learning boundaries, all sorts of stuff. All right, let's come back to the core things that make decision making hard for everyone. One is that we want to control the uncontrollable. When we can't accept that life is uncertain, we're powerless over many things, we can just go over and over and over and over issues trying to find that one perfect decision when there may not be a perfect decision. So that's a key for everyone who has trouble making decisions. And if you pull into it the people pleasing elements of wanting others to be happy and wanting everyone to like you, which is not possible, you can see why you're having trouble making decisions. And then the second thing that makes making decisions hard for everyone is value conflicts. Most of the time that we have trouble making a decision, it's because our values are in conflict, right? So for a people pleaser, my value is to make somebody else happy. I want to do that, but ooh, I really want to do that over there, but I know they're not going to be happy. So I value what that choice is going to give me, but I also value making them happy. How do I weigh it, right? There's a conflict. We have value conflicts all the time. They do make life complicated, but they're a reality. So learning how to sort through value conflicts, super important. So I am going to talk about those two things and other things that make decision making hard for everyone in a video called Anxiety and Decision Making. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe, hit the like button if this video is helpful for you. Comment below, let me know what you think, let me know what other questions you have, and I'll see you next week.